Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Annie, this is Stanley, and we're here to talk about books. And this is going to be my take on the very popular BookTube format of the Unhaul project. And basically I have created a subset of my physical and ebook TBR of 25 books, which I think I'm probably never going to pick up if I have other options, but I still want to give them a try and see whether I like them. So I've created a spinner wheel of all of these less appealing titles from my TBR, and I'm going to select a book, give it 50 pages, and then decide whether to read it or yeet it. And that's how it's going to work. So welcome to Read It or Yeet It. Here we go again. Spin, spin, spin. Okay. Not a bad choice. So, regular viewers will know that I am taking part in Yeet 2.0, the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do. And one of the squares on the bingo board for that is an adaptation square, where you have to find books that have been adapted in various different ways. And one of those is to find a book that has been turned into a comic or a manga. And I discovered a version of Paradise Lost by John Milton, which has been turned into a graphic novel by a Spanish comics artist called Pablo Oladel. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but I've done my best. And yeah, I studied Paradise Lost at university. I wrote my undergraduate thesis on the character of Satan in Paradise Lost, so I am quite familiar with the original source material. And I was intrigued by the idea of it being turned into a graphic novel, but not intrigued enough to actually want to read it for some reason. So it went on the Read It or Yeet It spinner wheel, and here we are. I don't know anything about how this has been adapted. I'm assuming it's not going to be the actual original text of the poem, especially since it was written in Spanish and has been translated. So I'm assuming it's not been Milton's poetry translated into Spanish by the author of the comic book and then translated back again. I don't know. But also I think Paradise Lost is longer than this comic book. So yeah, I'm going to find out. I enjoy Paradise Lost type stories. I have been known to very much like the character of Satan or Lucifer in other media along the way. So I am kind of intrigued, but also a little bit apprehensive. But it's a graphic novel, so how bad can it get? I guess we'll find out shortly. So I'm 50 pages into the graphic novel version of Paradise Lost by Pablo Oladel, and it's interesting. It's not the kind of art style that I would normally go for. It's very painterly. It's very kind of realistic, but also stylized in a weird way. I know that sounds kind of contradictory. But yes, the figures are definitely designed to look like real people, but it's quite stark. It's quite minimalist. I think it is in black and white. I don't actually know because the e-reader wouldn't show color if it did have color. And I don't think the e-reader is the best way to experience it, really, because it's quite murky. There's a lot of heavy shading, and I'm not always getting all of the details. I don't think so. I think for the rest of it, I'm going to switch to trying to read it on my phone, because I think that'll make it easier and clearer. But a lot of the panels are really good, really impactful, and the style definitely fits with the tone and the language, because it does read very much like Milton's poetry. So because it says it's been translated from the Spanish, and it gives the translator's name, presumably it was translated, or the author used a Spanish translation of the poem, but then it got translated back, which seems an odd choice. Why not use the original wording? But anyway, I am enjoying revisiting Milton, because I enjoy Milton, and I think it's doing a good job of conveying the aesthetic and the emotion of the story. Where I am, Satan has just kind of started collecting together the other fallen angels and is starting to build a home for them where they've ended up. He's got an excellent hat. I don't know why he has a hat, but he does have a hat, and it's an excellent hat. So yeah, I think I'm going to carry on reading it. It's not very long. I'm just over 50 pages in, and there's only 300 in total. It's a fairly quick read because there's very little wording. It's mostly visual, but every now and then there are quotes from the poem, and there's also some dialogue boxes in some of the panels as well. So yeah, interesting time. Going to carry on. No yeeting of the e-reader today, Stanley. So I have finished the graphic novel of Paradise Lost, based on the poem by John Milton. And yeah, glad I read it. I'm also glad that I switched to reading it on my phone, because there was actually a really interesting use of colour. There wasn't a lot of colour. There wasn't really any bright colour. It was very minimal, quite pastel. But the distinction between the different realms was drawn through colour. So in hell, it was all red. In heaven, it was all pale blue. And on earth, it was all kind of beige and green. So that was really interesting. And the text boxes changed depending on what part of the story we were at. So when it was showing the flashbacks to the war in heaven, and Lucifer was still one of the angels, all of his speech and all of the descriptions of him were in pale blue. When previously and after that section, they were all red after he'd fallen. And the same thing happened to Adam and Eve after they ate the fruit. Their text sections moved from the beige to the red, because they were cast out for eating the fruit. So yeah, I wasn't wholly sold on the art style. It's not really my kind of thing, but there were also some really amazing panels, really beautiful paintings. Most of the ones that were sort of full page pieces of art, rather than it being split up into different panels on the page, were really incredible. Especially the War in Heaven sections were very impressive. And yeah, I enjoyed seeing it in that way, and revisiting some of the Milton style poetry. Enjoyed it. Yeah, 4 stars. Glad I read it. Glad it came up on the wheel. A success of Read It or Yeet It. No yeeting of Paradise Lost. Well, Stanley seems to be mostly asleep right now, so it's probably a good job we're not yeeting, because I'm not sure he'd be up for it. You right there? Okay. So yes, that's that one done. Moving on. So, The Humans. The Humans by Matt Haig. I did not do a spinner wheel. I have actually selected this, so I'm kind of cheating a little bit on Read It or Yeet It rules, because this book has been on my TBR the last 2 or 3 months, and I haven't actually got round to it yet. So I thought to force myself to actually finally give it a try, because it's turned into one of those ones where I don't actually want to read it now, because I've said I was going to read it and then I didn't multiple times, and now I think I look at it and I go, oh, no, I don't want to read it. So I've put it on Read It or Yeet It to force me to read it, because I've got to read it at some point for Her Kid, because it's doing my house pets prompt for the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do, animals square on the bingo board. Anyway, so it's about a man called Andrew Martin. Some kind of incident occurs. He starts feeling disconnected from the world, as if he doesn't really fit in with other humans. I don't really know what the overriding thing is for the book, whether he is actually some kind of alien, whether he gets possessed by something supernatural, or whether it's all just a metaphor for some kind of psychotic break. I am going to find out. There is a dog. The dog is called Newton, so I'm looking forward to that. But at the moment, I'm really not sure about it, because, as I said, it's been hanging around now, and it's turned into a thing that I don't want to read it. So I'm going to read it, or at least I'm going to read the first 50 pages, and we'll see how it goes. And eventually I will hopefully find out what it's all about. So I am 50 pages into The Humans by Matt Haig, and I don't really know what to think of this. The back of the book, which you shouldn't really ever go on, and I don't actually like to read anymore, because often it actually gives away a lot of the story. And in this, it's kind of the opposite, because it suggests that something happens to the protagonist and he starts to feel disconnected from the world. The way it's presented in the book, in the first few pages, is that Professor Andrew Martin is abducted by aliens and killed, and replaced by an alien in a facsimile of his body. And the reason that this is happening is that he's a mathematician, and he makes a breakthrough, something to do with maths, which is going to change the trajectory of human progress. And the aliens think that it's dangerous for the humans to have this, and they want to prevent it becoming known. So they abduct Professor Martin and replace him, for reasons I don't understand yet. I think to destroy any evidence of his research, I guess. But so it's kind of presented, it's definitely presented as it really is an alien. And I don't know yet whether that's going to pertain throughout the rest of the book. But it doesn't really hang together. So it's from the perspective of this alien, and the alien doesn't understand very much about humans, human society, human interactions, anything really, which feels weird, because you would think that they would have prepared, I'm going to say him, better for this situation, because it's emphasized that he's supposed to blend in and not cause suspicion, and yet he doesn't know enough to be able to do that. And also, he later, it's revealed fairly early on that he can in fact hypnotize humans very easily and persuade them of things, and to let him do things or convince them of things. So why he doesn't do that all the way through, or at least to begin with, to stop him from being arrested and put in a psychiatric hospital, it doesn't, as I say, it doesn't really hang together. And it's also a bit of an issue that it's very cleverly done in terms of showing humans from an alien perspective, of being very confused by a lot of things. It makes some very clever observations about ridiculous aspects of being human, but it's a bit much, because it's quite relentless, and also it's describing a lot of very mundane things, admittedly in quite a clever way, but they're still very mundane things, and as a human reader we understand what they are, so they're not interesting. So I'm struggling a bit. It's also a bit heavy-handed because it keeps saying, oh, you, the readers of this report, will know by now what I have done, and I'd like to explain why I did it. So it's kind of like, oh, something sensational is going to happen, and we are seeding the mystery. And I always find that a little bit tedious. But having said that, I am kind of intrigued. It's not a massively long book, and I do want to know where it's going, even though I'm not wholly sold on it at the moment. So we're not eating it yet, Stanley. But watch this space, because I'm unconvinced, and I'm pretty sure I'm even getting bored of the approach by page 50. So by page 300, I think I'm going to be very tired of it. But we'll see, because I do kind of want to know what happens. So I am back with an update on The Humans by Matt Haig. And yeah, I kind of saw this coming, even though I carried on after the 50-page mark, because I wasn't enjoying the writing style. And whilst I do appreciate and understand what the author was trying to do with the style and the approach, just didn't work for me. I wasn't enjoying it. He is obviously trying to demonstrate bad or weird or stupid aspects of human society by looking at them through an external perspective. And that is successful to a certain extent, but it's just a bit much. It's trying a bit too hard to be clever for me. And I just found the character really unpleasant. I mean, I think that he probably does end up learning that humans aren't all bad and gaining a better perspective, but I didn't want to sit through another 200 pages to get to that point. And he also does some pretty terrible things along the way. And there is a question about, yes, maybe he learns his lesson and discovers a better way to be and has some kind of redemption arc, but how redeemed can a character be if they've already done some pretty awful stuff? So yeah, it also, I think it's trying to be funny, and it's just not the kind of humor that works for me. So I can see how I know there are a lot of people who think this book is fantastic, and I'm not one of them, but I can see why it might appeal to other people. It's just not for me. And I think this is it for me and Matt Haig. I did enjoy the Radleys a long time ago when I read it. And I also think I enjoyed How to Stop Time the first time I read it, not so much the second time I read it. The Midnight Library, I was a bit hit and miss about it. And this one, yeah, I approached the 100-page mark, and once the alien, and it does seem to actually be an alien, not a metaphor for mental health issues, as the back perhaps suggests, once the alien really got down to business in terms of his mission on Earth, and I just thought, I don't want to read any more of this. So, and also the dog, which was kind of important for me to fulfill the house pet square on the Herkyed bingo board, was barely in it. He may have become more important later on, but up to the point I read, it wouldn't have fulfilled the square. So it's not helping me out, and I was kind of pushing through, at least partially, to achieve that. So, Stanley, time to yeet The Humans by Matt Haig. Oh, look at his face. He's looking forward to this. Come on. I have to try not to hit the tripod today. and also actually let go of the book. Okay, come on. Hey, excellent. So after being on the TBR and off the TBR and on the TBR and off the TBR and now part of Read It or Yeet It, it's been yeeted. Oh well. On to the next. And we spin. Oh, the suspense. Okay, that's an interesting one. The Zookeeper's Wife by Diane Ackerman also falls into the category of the Yeet 2.0 animal square, because I have to have zoo animals as well as house pets and exotic pets and wild animals and various other animal types. And I came across this when looking for a book to fulfill the zoo animals prompt, and I thought it sounded interesting. And then it turned up and I discovered that it's actually non-fiction rather than fiction. And that put me off because I don't tend to read non-fiction, which is terrible because I know that there are many wonderful non-fiction books out there, some of which I will have to read for the Yeet non-fiction square. But I just don't tend to pick them up. And also, this is set in the Second World War, and it's about the zookeeper in Warsaw. Zookeepers Jan and Antonina Zabinski begin smuggling Jews into the empty cages because, oh no, the zoo animals have been killed or stolen away to Berlin. Uh-oh. There's not necessarily going to be zoo animals in it. Oh well. Well, we are where we are. We'll see. Maybe there'll be some. Hopefully there'll be some. Anyway, so they smuggle Jews into the empty cages to rescue them from the Nazis when Poland is invaded. And the other reason that I'm a little bit apprehensive is I have read a lot of books set in and around the Second World War in my time. It's an important part of history for us to revisit and learn about. But I'm a little bit weary of Second World War stories, if I'm honest, because there have been a lot of them. A lot of them have been amazing, but they're often not particularly enjoyable to read. So, particularly since it's non-fiction, this could get quite dark. But I'm hoping that it'll be interesting. I'm hoping that it'll be affecting. I'm hoping that it will teach me some things about a period of history that I don't know as much about as I could. And yeah, hopefully it'll have some zoo animals in it. Otherwise, I'm going to have to find a different book to fulfill that prompt. But anyway, let's dive in and see what we think after 50 pages. So I'm a little way into The Zookeeper's Wife by Diane Ackerman, and I didn't need 50 pages to know that I'm going to want to read the rest of this. It's great. I'm expecting there to be some tough sections because it is about the persecution of Polish Jews in the Second World War. I do have a somewhat personal connection to that since my great-grandparents were Polish Jews who left Poland in the early 1910s, I believe, which obviously meant that they were not caught up in that aspect of being a Polish Jew because they moved to Argentina. But anyway, yes, that does have some interest for me because, you know, if they hadn't moved, then I probably wouldn't be here. But anyway, yes, very, very good writing. It's an interesting mix of a lot of background detail and descriptions of the zoo and Warsaw and the way of life of the zookeepers and all of the animals that they look after. And the animals are in it, hurrah! Especially in the early sections, it's about how they look after the animals and what their life is like. So yeah, really interesting. It's also got direct action scenes like it's a novel, so it's a weird mix in a way. But yes, very interesting, very involving. there's already been quite the gamut of emotion, and I'm expecting that to continue and intensify. But yes, very much enjoying it so far and looking forward to reading the rest of it. So yeah, good choice. No yeeting of this one, Stanley. So I have finished The Zookeeper's Wife by Diane Ackerman. And yeah, it was a tough read, but I was expecting it to be. What I wasn't expecting, despite the time period, because it's about life in Warsaw throughout the Second World War, and it's about the couple who help run the Warsaw Zoo, was how many terrible things happened to the animals. So, I mean, you would expect that there are going to be some pretty harrowing tales of things that happened to people, and there were, but definitely content warnings for animal death, animal cruelty, animal suffering, a lot of animals not having a good time. And sure, yes, it's horrible what happens to the people, but I wasn't expecting, I was prepared for that, but I wasn't prepared for the animal stuff. I did think about DNFing this book several times, but I'm actually glad that I pushed through and read it, because it is very good. It's quite interesting and a bit weird in terms of the approach, because a lot of the writing is quite lyrical. It goes on some tangents for many pages about specific aspects of history, the plants, the different animals, specific people, particularly in the Nazi Party, and their attitude to animals, which was all quite interesting. Some of it went on a bit too long for me, because I was more interested in the individual stories and the personal stories of the zookeepers and the people that they were helping. And then there would be just a really bald statement of, and then this incredibly horrible thing happened, and then that would be it. And there were also various things that happened to do with the people that I was really interested in, where it would just mention something in passing, and I'd be like, oh, that's the thing that I'm interested in. I want to know more about that. And we'd have pages and pages about the history of a particular Nazi officer's obsession with recreating extinct animals, which, yes, was interesting up to a point. And then, you know, we wouldn't get the detail about the daily life or the family that we were following. So that was quite weird. But it's a bit scattershot. It kind of jumps back and forth in time a lot. So I got a bit confused. It felt as though Antonina, the zookeeper's wife of the title, was pregnant for like 18 months or something, based on the timeline. But I must be wrong about that, obviously. But so it was a little bit confusing in terms of that. And yeah, rough, pretty rough in a lot of ways, but very interesting. Did in fact give me a lot of information about stuff that I did not know. All very fascinating stuff. I'm glad I read it, and I'm giving this one 3.5 stars. So that's it for this episode of Read It or Yeet It. And as has become the track record, we had 1 yeet and 2 successes. So yeah, we're doing pretty well with this project, I think, Stanley. Yeah, it's going to be interesting if there's ever an episode where that doesn't happen. I'm definitely not rigging it. I did very much almost DNF The Zookeeper's Wife, I have to say, but I did not, and I am glad I did not. So yes, I hope you've enjoyed this latest instalment in the Read It or Yeet It series. I'm certainly getting a lot out of picking up the books and getting through them, or not. And yeah, see you in another video very soon. Bye for now.